Hi, Huntresses.
Welcome to Talk Rich to Me,
Where we explore the human side of finance. We're your co-hosts, Stephanie Gutman
and Ysenia Rhodes, co-founders of Huntress Wealth. Welcome back, Huntresses. It's Ysenia. Today we have our first ever trio episode. Stephanie and I are joined by Khammi Hurd, a human design expert that works with Huntress. We explore what human design is, break down the 4 energy types, and learn how understanding your body's decision-making process can boost your relationship with life and money. You also get to learn a lot more about me and Steph. If you're interested in learning more about your human design, contact us for more information. We hope you enjoy. So today is a very special episode. We have new recording equipment. I couldn't be more excited. For the first time ever, we will have a trio on our podcast. We have Stephanie, me, and our guest, Khammi Hurd, who is amazing and a human design expert.
Oh, I wouldn't say expert. Enthusiast?
Enthusiast? Yeah. I mean, anyone. I disagree. She's
Practitioner.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's why Stephanie's here. Far better than anybody. She's far better than ChatGPT. So if you've ever gone online and been like, what's my human design chart? And then you're like, let me put this in a ChatGPT. It says nothing compared to the amount of information that you would receive from Khammi.
Thank you so much. That's the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to me.
You don't know how much she chat GPT, so that's a really big compliment.
Well, my favorite thing about Huntress is that I like to tell people we are from woo-woo to real numbers. And so what that means is that we very much think that all of our desires and motivations are knowing thyself and mindset helps us get to a better not only financial picture, but just like how you make decisions in life. And our goal is to make people confident. When we first met and I first met you, I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about or how this conversation was going to proceed. I at first just thought it was your horoscope, but it's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't tell me anything that I didn't know about myself. But it went a lot deeper than general horoscope would. You know what I mean? Like everyone has a co-star. They they read what your sun, your moon is, whatever. And I feel like sometimes those horoscopes are so generalized.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought when we talked about what human design was and everything, I was like, wow, this is so validating. And I immediately thought of Huntress and thought, it would be so cool if as part of our wellness sessions where we provide like visualizing wealth and stuff, like if people really understood what their motivations were. And I think that's the way you explained it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, human design is like a really helpful map of what you are and especially what you're not. And I think that's like one of the hardest things to figure out as humans because we get so conditioned from a really young age to be what our parents want us to be or what our teachers want us to be or what society wants us to be. And most of us just are not that. And so kind of having like a clear picture of okay, this is where I'm really consistent. These are the energies that is natural for me to be putting out and to be working with versus these are the things that are really inconsistent in me. And those are usually the areas that we're trying to kind of like control and have a kind of harness. But when you accept the areas where you're inconsistent, it makes it a lot easier to just be like, oh, that's not me. I don't need to go in that direction. I can really focus on what I am. So I think human design it's a really good map for discernment and clarity so that you can use your energy more efficiently over time.
I'm curious, Ysenia, did you know what human design was when Francesca said you should go check this out? Did you already know?
Of course I did. I'm like very woo woo, as we know. But I knew what it was. People all over the socials talk about their human design. And
Well, so for those of us that might not have the same algo, what is human design?
Yeah, okay. So it's a system that was channeled by a man, a Canadian man in 1987, over the course of 8 days. He heard this voice, he had this experience, he just sort of downloaded all of this information. And then he spent the next 2 decades teaching it, uh, experimenting with it himself, and then just teaching it and getting it out there. So it's a system that synthesizes a bunch of different wisdom traditions, but it doesn't just sort of jam them together. It kind of like it brings in all of these different wisdom traditions and then it creates a whole other thing. So it brings in the chakra system, the Kabbalah, the Western astrology, the I Ching is a big part of human design, and then there's also like quantum mechanics and science. So it's it's really fascinating. To sort of see all of those things in one place, and it's really dense, so it's very hard to look it up yourself and start and kind of get a handle on it. And that's why I think it can be very expensive to get a reading from an analyst, because it does take it's like it's a rabbit hole. We can go down so many different rabbit holes with human design. But the other good thing about it is like if you just know some basics, just knowing basically what's called your energy type and your strategy and authority, that's really all you need to start experimenting with it.
So what I like about this is like the notion of like all those different arenas have like come up on their own or through their own traditions, but there actually are a lot of themes between them. Right. And so it's this
Yeah.
notion of like human wisdom
Right.
coming together, and they're not all the same, but there are certainly overlaps. And so it is like you were familiar with horoscope and you're like, maybe it's just an intense horoscope, but it's like, well, kind of, right?
Yeah, and it's much less predictive than a lot of astrology can be. It really is sort of a map of what you came in to the world with and sort of eventually like where you belong in the world or sort of how you fit into the whole matrix of the world. That's what human design can kind of show you.
So when Ysenia brought this to me of like, hey, do you think we should offer human design as part of our sessions? And it's like, well, first I need to know more. Like, what is this? But you had kind of talked about it that way. And it like, it's again, not predictive. It's very much
Mhm.
so like understanding your motivations and how you tick.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then stop fighting that, like,
Right.
hopefully to get more in alignment so you can go on whatever journey is most important to you.
Yeah, and it's really about like understanding when how your body talks to you because in human design your mind is like never your decision maker. It's always coming from your body, but it's very different for each person. So understanding the messages of your body, experimenting with following those over your mind. And then it's also really helpful for understanding how your energy works in relation to other people. Like both of you are manifestors, so you have this very like impactful aura. And for a lot of manifestor women, and for some reason I work with a lot of manifestor women.
They show up for these things.
we manifested it.
Yes, yeah. But it's amazing because a lot of manifestor women get really conditioned from a young age to be small, to make themselves smaller because you just show up and you take up a lot of space, like energetically, in a way that you can't, people can't put that into words, but human design can.
I do want to address this because I think most of our
Right.
demographic are like very open to these things, but I do know there's some cynics out there. But what I what I think is so interesting, I'll never forget literally having my second child. We were at the hospital and the nurses and the doctors were like, "Oh, it's definitely a full moon today. Like all the babies are coming tonight."
Yeah.
And you're like, "What? Am I hearing you correctly? Western medicine doctors are here talking about full like moon cycles and how that affects literally the gravitational pull of when babies come." And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm just like misunderstanding or whatever. And so I think it's kind of interesting when people are cynical about this. It's crazy how the moon cycles really do affect people. And like that's
Yeah.
part of what astrology and human design is incorporated with,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and one of my favorite astrologers, Carolyn Casey, she says something like, when people ask her, that or say something about how astrology hasn't been proved by science, she's like, well, honestly, science has never been proven by astrology. And but I think that's it. Like, and she talks a lot about like, don't believe it, but entertain the possibility. And I think that's a really good way to go into human design, to go into astrology, is just like, is this useful for me? Is this something I can get something out of? Is this something that I can experiment with? It's not something you need to believe in. And actually, that's what the man that channeled human design, his name is Ra Uruhu, he said that repeatedly, like, don't believe this, experiment with it. And I think that's really everything that's felt right for me in my life has come down to, this is experiential. It's not something that you just blindly believe or follow. It's something that you actually try for yourself.
Well, in like worst case, it's a framework for thinking through
Right.
things, right? Even if it all is all coming from within. If you told me something I didn't believe, it's like, why am I accepting or rejecting that notion? That's
Right.
even something to reflect on, even though from what I've heard, I'm going to be aha-ing this whole time.
Fun fact is that I know Khammi and Stephanie has just met her for the first time. And part of that was because we didn't know about whether we would have the proper tech setup. But also, I can't wait for the ahas that like I first had when I was speaking with you, to come out with her. So I'm like excited that she gets to
Yeah.
experience that. And also, I will say it may be less about reflecting on you than it is like, oh, that's why Ysenia sucks so much. Like it's innate.
Nobody thinks that.
No, like whenever you're like, why isn't she doing that? I'm like, I swear I just was born this way.
Yeah, and it's helpful to honestly just to like accept the people around you more, especially when you understand they have a very different energy type than you. Then it's like, oh, you literally experience the world in such a different way, which sounds kind of dumb, but then you'd be, like when you really think about it, you start to realize how much you just sort of project your motivations onto everyone around you, and then you're like, why aren't you doing it like me?
I know human design is, as you've described, super intense, but can we kind of do like a high level breakdown of the different, call it keywords?
Yes. Okay. So the first and probably most important thing is just getting an understanding of your energy type. So there are 4 energy types. There's manifestors, which are about 9% of the population. There are generators, which are about 70% of the population. So that's most of us. And there's also a subset of generators called manifesting generators. But ultimately they have the same auric type, same strategy. Then there are projectors, which are about 20% of the population, and reflectors, which are only 1% of the population. So manifestors have what's called a motor center, which is like a chakra that produces a lot of energy. They have a motor center connected straight to the throat chakra. But
We talk a lot.
yes. But they but they have an open sacral center. So that's sort of like the basics of what makes a manifestor. And they have a very impactful aura. And it's closed and repelling. So it's basically the function of a manifestor aura is to kind of get people out of your way so that you can initiate and take action and do what you need to do. So manifestors are the only energy type that are meant to initiate. And that's really important because most of the world, we're trying to initiate. We're trying to make things happen. Most generators are trying to be manifestors, and we're not. So generators and manifesting generators, we have a defined sacral center. So any type that has a defined sacral center is a generator of some kind. And our strategy is to wait to respond. And so in a lot of ways, generators are really lucky because we get to use our strategy all the time. It's just always operating. Like your body is cold, that's a response. For a lot of generators, me included, that is my intuition. Me just following what my body needs in any given moment or paying attention to its signals. That's my intuition. It's surface level. It's always there. It's going all the time. But we're supposed to wait to respond to things outside of us. So we have to go interact with the world, be out in the world. We have an open, enveloping aura because it's sort of the function of it is to attract what's correct for us and so that we have something to respond to. So generators can be very powerful as well. It's not this passiveness is not a weakness. It's just the way that our energy is sort of designed to work.
It's the strategies. Like, yeah, the
Mhm.
manifestor's going out in the world and initiating, and then the generator is receiving the right things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who described generators at one point as like Buddhist warrior or like warrior Buddhas, sort of like really being in your body is and kind of waiting for things to come to you. And not that we just have to sit around and wait, but that energy of just like really allowing ourselves to be in the moment that we're in, experience our life in our body, and then go from there. But we get really conditioned into people pleasing as generators. We get really conditioned into, oh, I need to go start a business. I need to go make things happen. We get in our minds really easily as generators. And that's why the world is so frustrated because,
Is that kind of like, again, if it's like receiving, it's like these ideas are coming at you or these like opportunities,
yeah,
and so you consider them all, but they might not necessarily be following like your natural way with the world.
right. You can, so like, one thing for me that I've realized, I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm a type of generator, and I started to realize, like, when I'm cold, when it's really cold out, I'll start going like, and I can't stop myself. And then I realized, like, oh, that's my body responding to being cold, right? So, and then my response to that is like, I need to get warm, right? And it's helpful to know a lot about generators because you're mostly going to be interacting with generators. And it works a lot better for generators to give them yes or no or this or that options. We don't do well with like open ended questions. You have to give the sacral something to respond to, basically. Whereas for manifestors, you don't really want to ask manifestors a whole lot of questions. You don't want to request things from manifestors for the most part. It's more, you need to inform them. So rather than being like, hey, will you take the trash out? That will often, so you would maybe say, like, the trash needs taken out. You would inform them and sort of give the manifestor the option of do they want to take action on that or not? Right. So kind of having an understanding on some of these things can just like help pave the way for like smoother interactions in the world. And then when manifestors are operating correctly, they can give generators so much to respond to, right? Like you guys can, when you're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. A lot of times your instinct is to tell no one and just go do it. But if you give people around you the opportunity by telling them, hey, I'm going to go do this thing, then generators can be like, hey, I want to help you with that, or I know what to do. Like then it gives their energy something to respond to. So they're like, oh, I'm going to get out of my I'm going to clear the path for this, and that makes your life easier. So, and that's your strategy as a manifester, is to inform, which is really not natural for most manifestors. And if you have a manifestor child, you teach your manifestor child to ask permission. Um, and you just start to teach them, like, okay, if you ask permission, I'm probably going to let you do it if it's safe. If it's not safe, you're going to have to trust me until you're a little bit older. But giving manifestor children that is huge for them because they will quickly learn to be like secretive about about things because they're like, well, I really want to go outside right now, and I'm 3 years old, and I know that mom is going to tell me no, and I really need to do it, and so they'll just like try to find a way to do it, or they'll be like out.
Wait, because my mom is number one stan. I legit, when I was 4 years old, didn't want to go to ballet, and she made me go. And I ran. It just so happened that the ballet studio was like across the creek from my house. And I ran home.
Yeah. Exactly.
I literally ran away, and there was a ballet teacher running after me. So sorry. I don't think you knew that story, but that is hilarious.
Yes.
My mom is going to enjoy that so much.
Yeah. So this is why it can be so useful knowing your child's design, because especially if you're raising like a manifestor child, you don't raise a manifestor child in the same way as you raise other kids. You have to really like give them a lot of freedom and sort of honor the fact that they're these like powerful little beings that are not capable of like keeping themselves alive yet. And you have to navigate that. So it's a lot. But okay.
We covered the population.
Yes.
And now we have,
Okay.
well, yeah, because it was generators. Did we cover manifesting generators?
Yeah, they're kind of in with generators. They're slightly different,
So
but basically the same.
Why are Elon and Donald so crazy?
Who?
Elon Musk and Donald Trump are both manifesting generators from what I found on the internet. So it could be slightly wrong.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I haven't really like looked at their charts, but the thing that I find with men, we want to get into this.
I love this.
So, men have so much, they're just sort of given so much power. And so for manifesting generators, so their not self theme is ultimately frustration, just like generators, but there's also anger, which is part of manifestors, not self theme. And so they can be angry and frustrated. And so manifesting generators can be really powerful for better or worse, because we have our sacral, which is the most powerful motor, connected to our throat. So it's like we have energy connected straight to expression. But so generators that are operating out of sort of like, I would say not correctly, or sort of like pushing things through, that are operating out of their mind, a lot of times they'll get really frustrated, right? And a lot of manifestor men turn into like horrible world dictators and leaders. But I find that women really have to learn about their anger and their power in a much different way than men in general have to learn with all of the things. And so they can sort of seize power and take power and be these like really angry sort of like, but we also don't know. I have to assume that they're not happy. I have to assume that they're not feeling satisfied. But that's not to say that they don't have enormous power in their form that they got, that they incarnated into. And they could have just been using it and like in a way that we would have loved much better.
So this brings me to a great, like, going to the next. I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I believe Obama was a reflector, and so is Michelle, right?
They were projectors.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. And yeah.
Wrong.
Okay. And so projectors are 20% of the world. They don't have a motor center connected to the throat, and they don't have a sacral. They don't have the defined sacral. They always have an open sacral. So they're actually not really supposed to work very much. Projectors are guides. They're really good at guiding other people's energy, feeling into what is ideally one-on-one, like working one-on-one. They're very sensitive to energy. And even when they're doing work that they love, it drains them. They get really tired. So ideally projectors are only working like maybe 4 hours a day tops. And they're kind of more trading their wisdom for money rather than their time for money, which is every time I talk to a projector and talk to them about this, there's a big like, so like learning about human design as a projector is amazing, because they're very different. They're operating in a really different way than the rest of the world. And they don't quite like fit in the same way. They're not energy beings. They're not people that can like push through and make it happen. They can often like take on way too much from other people, but they're really good at sort of zooming out and seeing how things should be playing out. They're really good at like seeing like a chessboard. They can see many moves ahead, or they're like traffic helicopters where we're all down here on the ground. They can see what's actually going on. So Barack and Michelle, both projectors. And I think that there's, like that's a very different tone than what we have now. And I think they were invited into office in a different way. That's the strategy for projectors. Wait for the invitation, right? And a lot of times it's a very formal invitation. Like,
Do we think this is why Barack went in looking 45, came out looking 65?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's, and like now he needs the rest of his life to rest probably. But also projectors can sort of feed off the energy of generators. A lot of projectors, you would think that they're generators. They're working so hard. They can work harder because they're around generators all the time. They can sort of feed off of that energy, but not forever. They will get really burned out eventually. Pretty much all projectors get to a point in their life where they really have like almost like a health crisis or something if they're operating sort of out of this like I have to like create and produce. They're eventually going to like wear themselves out. So it's really helpful for projectors to understand their human design. My husband is a projector and he's a soccer coach, and he's really good at sort of like seeing all of these things on the field, and he's really good at directing the energy of the players on the field. And he's really bad at understanding when he's tired. So that's a big thing with like people that don't have a sacral center defined. You guys, projectors, reflectors, it's harder for you to recognize when you're actually tired. Where for generators, we go, 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 go. And then we're like, oh, it's time for bed, and then we understand and we go to sleep and it's great. But, and so like for me, I was surprised to learn that I was a manifesting generator because I always felt like, oh, I just like I go to bed at 8 p.m. and, I get so much sleep. How is this possible? And then I've started to realize over the years, it's like, oh, that's because I recognize how much energy I have for the day. And then I understand that it's time for bed. I can really feel that in my body. It's a thing that you guys have to really figure out.
So it brings us to our last point, right?
What's reflectors?
Yeah, wait. You had something to say.
Oh no, we both stay up till like 1 a.m. all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm watching television because I'm a project. I have some strong projector traits in me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I do. I have we've talked about this.
yeah.
How many lines are there? Sorry, this gets way too complex, but we can talk about this.
Yeah, you do have you have a projector or 2 projector channels, and you have all manifestor channels. You're all manifestor.
That's why I'm watching TV and you're working on the app.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so reflectors are only like 1% of the population. I only have one reflector friend in my life that I know well. They have all of their centers open, so they're really inconsistent. They're designed to be like they sort of reflect the health of the community. And they have the hardest strategy in a lot of ways. They sort of have to wait a full lunar cycle. So reflectors are lunar beings. The rest of us are solar beings, but they have to wait for the moon to go through like an entire 28-day cycle to get clear on like big decisions. Yeah. And they're really different. They're operating in a very different way. And they're very like influenced by the transits. Manifestors are also more influenced by transits than they are in like one-on-one interaction. They sort of sample other people's auras and they're like, oh, what is this like? Oh, what does this feel like? But it can be hard for reflectors to kind of know who they are. There could be a lot of like pressure to be like, figure out what you're doing, where you're going, who you are as a reflector. And it could be really confusing. And really, they're sort of just like, they're fully reflecting the people they're around, the community that they're in. So for reflectors, finding a place that feels good, finding people that feel good to be around is sort of like what helps them figure out where they're meant to be in the world. So reflectors are very rare. It's also very helpful. It can be very helpful for reflectors to find human design, but also they're kind of the least likely to be interested in it. The reflectors are usually more interested in other people. They don't really like have that much interest in learning about themselves.
Or at least they need a whole month to decide.
Yeah, or they need yes, yeah. And that's what I found in my family member that's a reflector. He really he has to take a very long time to make big decisions. And he's married to a manifesting generator that like knows kind of immediately what she wants to do, and she's very decisive. And that's an interesting like dynamic. And they're completely different. Like, yeah.
So I think you said it, but just making sure I heard it. What's the strategy for a reflector?
Yeah, so they're supposed to wait a lunar cycle.
Oh, waiting and like
Mhm.
literally reflecting is
Yeah.
the strategy.
So 3 of the 4 energy types have waiting in their strategy. All right, so there's a lot more like yin in the world than we sort of, and you can see that, like, oh, well, if more people were okay with letting things come to them, waiting to respond, waiting for invitations, just like giving themselves time, the world would be completely changed.
So recapping strategies, let's see if I remember, it's like a self-test. So for manifestors, the strategy is inform.
Mhm.
Let people know what you're doing. For generators, it is like take things as they get react, right?
Wait to respond.
Wait to
Yep.
respond.
Mhm.
Versus initiate, right?
Right.
And then projectors, what was it?
Projectors, well, they need to wait for recognition. I didn't mention
The
this piece.
invitation. Yeah.
Recognition and invitation, because it is really helpful to recognize. That's part of their strategy, is to be seen and recognized for what they can offer, and then be invited into whatever.
And then reflectors is reflect. Take your time.
Mhm. Yeah, or really feel into it. I would say
Feel.
more
Don't think about it. Feel it.
Yeah, give yourself a full 28 days to feel into a decision. Yeah.
I cannot imagine doing that, but we are all different beings.
Yeah. Reflectors are kind of magical. They usually have a lot of reflectors have like a huge affinity with like children and animals.
They're like Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter.
Kind of, yeah.
She's a reflector.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to. I don't know why I brought that up, but I had to. Well, okay. Whew.
Yeah.
First of all, that was so informative, and I really, really enjoyed it. I really do. I think it's so intriguing to think about people that may be in these different buckets based on these types, and it makes you more empathetic, I think is the right word.
Yeah.
But it makes me move through the world with more empathy after I knew these things, especially about my kids and my husband, I'm like, so when you went over the different energy types, opened or closed and defined were words that I heard.
Uh-huh.
Do you mind kind of explaining that?
So there are 9 different centers in human design, which basically are what they've pulled from the chakra system. We mostly hear about a 7 chakra system. There's so many different chakras, actually, I think. But what has come over to the West, at least, is usually like a 7 chakra system. And in human design, they add 2 chakras, and they're called centers, right? Basically, human design, you have your date and time of birth, which gives you one part of your chart, right? And that's the conscious part, where the planets were. That shows you, if you look at a human design chart, it's like the black part of your chart. It's like the black lines, the black numbers. Those are your conscious side. And then you have another side that's in red on the other, and that's your body. And that is drawn from about 88 days before you're born. This is much different than astrology. So there's a whole other like astrology chart basically that is put into your human design, and you put those 2 placements together, and then that creates your body graph. So, and if you want to look up your own chart, I usually recommend the website mybodygraph.com. And you can put in your birth time, date, and then see what your general energy type is and see your chart.
But if you want a deep dive, you
Yes.
should definitely contact Khammi.
Yeah, come see me. But so once we have all of those activations of all the planets from the day you're born, all the planets from 88 days before you're born, that becomes your chart. So then the 9 centers are connected by channels and gates. And like if your sun is in gate 57, for example, and then your Mercury is in gate 10, those those connect to each other, and then you have a channel. So two gates connecting to each other create a channel. But yes, but
This is the quantum mechanics.
once you get a channel that connects two centers, so two chakras, then they're defined. So then they become colored in. So when you're looking at your body graph, any area that's colored in, it doesn't matter what color, red, black, orange, yellow, green, they're defined. And any center that's open, any gate that's open, any channel that's open, that'll show up as white. And that's either like completely open or undefined. And so your open centers are where you're really inconsistent. So for me, I have a totally open emotional center, or solar, it's called the solar plexus center in human design. And so I have no activations in my emotional center. And so I basically am feeling other people's emotions all the time. Um, and for you, you both have defined emotional centers. So you have channels that come out of your emotional center that connect to other centers. And so you are on your own emotional wave. So you have your own consistency in terms of your emotions. You're not as affected by other people's emotions. Where for me, I if someone's having a really strong emotion, I physically feel it in my body. And so this is where it can be really helpful, like understanding, oh, okay, while I experience myself as really emotional because I feel everyone's emotions all the time, they're not useful for my decision-making process. Where when you're consistent in a center, it actually gives you a lot of information about who you are and your decision-making process. And for both of you, your authority is your emotional center. And so riding the wave of your emotions on a decision is what actually gives you a lot of clarity about what's right for you. Where for me, if I'm really emotional, that's when I know, don't make a decision. Don't send that text to my husband. It's not, I don't have enough information, and I'm being clouded by either my emotional patterns that I've like picked up from, my entire life that really aren't to do with me, versus you have the advantage of getting to experience the highs and lows of your own specific emotional wave. Does this making sense?
So should we wait to make decisions until we've gone from the low to the high, or do we make them at peak low and peak high?
Yeah. So this is important because anyone with emotional authority, which is about 50% of the population, so it's the most common intuition you can have. You don't want to make decisions in the moment. For the most part, you want to give yourself at least 24 hours to go through the way, like a full emotional wave. And you don't want to make a decision when you're really excited. You don't want to make a decision when you're really like low and sad. You want to make a decision when it's like, actually, from what I understand, when it's just not as exciting anymore, when it feels kind of neutral, you kind of are like, okay, it's about right.
When it's chill.
Yeah, yeah. When you get
Maybe that's why it's all like, when it's chill, it's fine. It's chill.
yeah, or I've heard it described as when you are ready to accept the consequences of that decision. So, and and a lot of people, like, it can be very fun to jump in at the high of an emotional experience, right? Like, and for you, actually, that might have been like a big part of your process, like when you were younger. You have an energy about like kind of wanting, sort of like, where a lot of like crises will happen, or you're like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. I have to experience this. I have to go through it. I have to have this experience, like, which is great because it informs the collective on like what it's like to dive into experiences, right? So it's an important energy to have, but that's maybe something like as you get older that you start to understand, maybe I don't need to. Maybe I don't need to dive at the peak of those emotional things, or maybe I don't need to run when it feels really bad. Maybe I just like give myself time to wait.
Okay, that was super helpful. I
Okay,
like
good.
that it got complex though, because that means people need to go to you.
Oh,
They can't just
it's
go
so
through my body design or whatever.
Yeah, it's so complex.
So maybe an interesting thing. Well, I don't know, Steph, you really haven't heard yours. The highlights for
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, and we've talked a lot about it. Just sort of hearing about being a manifester is a lot of that. Okay, so this is your chart. So you can see you have 3 centers defined, and then you have 6 open centers. So you have a lot of openness. And for a manifester, um, I don't feel like manifestors get quite as affected by the openness as other energy types because, again, you have this sort of protective aura.
Yeah, if you think of it like a hallway, it's like we're sending stuff through it versus like
Right.
stuff coming in.
Yes. And like if this were like a projector chart, for instance, I would be like, okay, you're taking on a lot of stuff, right? But for manifestors, I even have a friend that only has this chance. She only has 2 centers defined as a manifestor. And she's really good at just not taking on other people's shit. This channel is called the channel of money, which is really, I think, is really interesting in your chart. And basically, this channel has kind of 2 to 3 different energies. The first one is sort of like you're really designed to be like kind of the queen. It's like the archetype of the queen or the king, like royalty, the person, the figurehead, sort of telling people what to do, the voice of leadership, right? But you also have this one, which, okay, I want to talk about this because it's called biting through the gate of the hunter/huntress.
What? You're kidding.
Yeah. So this is your unconscious sun gate. So it's a really big energy in your chart. And I thought that was really lovely. I thought you guys, yeah, might get a kick out of that.
What? I mean, tell me what it means.
Yeah. So this one is this one is about sort of like the CEO energy. It's the person that runs things, or like the hand of the queen, or it's the person on the ground like telling people what to do. And so you have both of those energies in your chart. And that can be a tricky energy to carry because it means that like you kind of need to be doing everything, right? Like it's hard.
Anyone who's ever worked for me knows delegating is not my strong suit.
Yeah. And so like for you, you really need like either to work for yourself or you need to have some kind of job where you have a ton of freedom. And then just knowing this about yourself is like my other friend that has this energy, she needs people to just like be out of her way so she can like run the show and then have lots of time for herself.
Can confirm.
Yeah. So this one is interesting. So this is a tribal energy and it's about being the person that runs things for the tribe, kind of makes money for the tribe, that keeps things that runs the show, right? So that's the type of tribal. A lot of tribal energy in human design is about like being in your little group, knowing who's safe for you, knowing who to let in and who not to let in, and then cooperating. But for you, this energy is actually about like telling everyone in the tribe what to do.
Okay, so I think this is a good time to ask, are these things good or bad? Like, how do you use them?
Yeah, they're neutral. They're all neutral. So
It's like, what do I do with that?
yeah. Well, just like accepting it about yourself. Because if you've ever had the feeling of like, oh, I should be more of a team player. Why am I not easier to like work with in groups? Why do I have to like take over everything? Like that's actually literally what you're meant to do. That is how your energy is designed to operate. And if someone like can't get on board with that or is trying to sort of like be above you or not take your wisdom into account or doesn't want like they're probably not the right person for you to be working with. So it's sort of just like, oh, this sort of like helps me understand how I'm meant to operate. Yes. And so I think it's also interesting, so if we put your charts together, we create like a whole other energy and you're based.
Whole other person.
Yeah. And it makes you into a manifesting generator. So together you have more energy to produce and create what you need to create. But it's also something that you need space from. So because neither of you actually have a defined sacral. So if you work too much with this, it's my sense that it could burn you out if you guys don't have your own space. You guys really need space from each other, and all manifestors do. A lot of manifestors just want to be left alone to do what they need to do, and they want people out of their way, right? And that's correct. That's like really correct for you. There's a lot of like hermit energy that is correct for manifestors.
I do love my hermit times. It's been.
So the other thing that I'll mention, that I always mention if someone has this in their chart, is your profile is a 5-1. So the 5 energy is called the heretic and the 1 is the investigator. You actually have a ton of 1 in your chart of investigator energy. It's really correct for you to like research everything, including like buying like some $10 thing on Amazon. You need to read all the reviews.
Everything.
Yeah. And you need to be really prepared. So it's not going to feel great for you to just like go off the cuff probably most of the time.
Not at all.
Yeah. You need to like really let yourself dive in.
Ysenia challenges me a lot in this way.
Yeah, she's the opposite.
Exactly the
she
opposite.
dives-
She's like, no, I'm fine. I was like, I'm not worried about you.
Yeah, so it's correct for you to like do way over prepare, do as much as you have to do that. You both have a 5 energy. The 5 energy, there's a message you guys are both here to like deliver, right? You need to universalize something. And when it's correct, when someone is randomly like, "Hey, I expect this of you." And then you're like, "You know what? Yes, I want to participate in that." Then that's when like a lot of change can happen and shifts can happen and big things can happen. A lot of famous people have 5s in their chart. Like people project so much onto famous people. And I mean, tons of people have 5s in their
I mean,
chart.
we're
but
definitely not famous.
I don't have much of this. I'm very introverted. I have like a 1 and a 3, and they're both pretty introverted. Well, the 3 is like trial and error. So I have to research a lot and then dive in, and sort of it ends up being sort of an archetype of like being potentially being someone that can teach things, right? But from a very selfish place, from just the things that I'm really interested in. I'm not interested in like really saving the world, where with the 5 in your chart, there's a part of you that it's correct for you to like make big changes or to be involved, and like I need to have a large impact on a big scale. So just like understanding that, like it's part of how you're designed to operate in the world, but it can feel really bad when you don't have an awareness of it. But it's really useful. It's also because then people can see things in you in a way that can be really useful when it's correct for you to like initiate the things and start the things that you need to start. So anyway, I think that's what's most useful about starting to understand your human design, is it's just like, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore, and I can just focus on these things, right?
I really enjoyed this. I hope this
Oh,
wasn't too
good.
exhausting for you.
Yeah, no, I love it. I have a defined sacral. I love talking about this stuff. It gives me energy.
Oh, great.
So one thing I do want to, I guess, before we like sign off, is talk about how this does relate to money. When I think of like these things you can learn about yourself and how you're operating with money today, like it's just informative, and maybe letting yourself off the hook for like what everyone tells you to go do. It's like, no, if you need a full lunar cycle to make a decision financially, then take your whole lunar cycle to do so, right?
Yeah, I think I would say the sort of understanding your decision making authority is so helpful. And then the other thing is knowing if you have a defined ego center or not. Because I have an open ego center, and so I'm really not designed to make goals or keep promises, which I think has a lot to do with like money.
And that's with yourself, right?
Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
let alone to others.
But that center and that's also the center of self-worth and human design. And so that gets really, and that usually for people, if that's open, you both have it defined, but if it's open, that's when I almost always talk about, because it gets really conditioned. We get really conditioned to be like, um, to show our worth, to prove ourselves, right? Especially in America. And so it can feel really bad. It can feel like, um, you get all of this pressure and buildup of like, oh my God, I have to prove myself. And so I have to remind myself all the time, oh, I'm really not designed to prove myself, and I don't have to worry about that. And so even, like coming to this podcast, like I kept reminding myself like, oh, I don't have to worry about proving anything. Actually, that's not how I operate. So I can like relax into, it'll be fine. I'll just say whatever. It'll, like it'll come to me, and that's all I have to worry about. And I don't have to focus on like goals have never felt good for me. Never. They've always felt overwhelming. I've never wanted to like get into them. They've always felt wrong. Even like resolutions, I'm like, ugh. And so like just acceptance around that can be really, really powerful and helpful of like, oh, that's just not the way that my energy is meant to work from this very like goal driven way. So knowing that also, I think in your chart can be really, really illuminating for in terms of like your finances and making money. And I think like another way to kind of think about that or feel into it in your human design, especially if you're a generator, is like move into things that are exciting for you. And I think that can also be translated into your financial life is like, are you dreading this? Does this like stress you out? Is there something else that feels more exciting? Because I think that's something that happens is we don't trust what our body is telling us. And for generators, which is 70% of the population, if we have a big reaction of, ugh, you don't have to do that. Like, like the things that are exciting to you, you can let yourself pursue those things. You can let yourself move towards those things and see what happens.
Yeah.
So if something feels like terrible in your body in terms of what you're doing with your finances, that might not be the thing for you. So just sort of like trusting your body a little bit more, I think.
The reason we brought human design in, and I know I always say like woo woo to the real numbers, right? But it's understanding like your motivation, right? And how
Mhm.
you flow through the world. And if you know that, then that can help you to just like make the end goal of Huntress, which is to make women financially confident with their finances. And I think
Yeah.
knowing and understanding like your motivations and how you move through the world is a big part of building any confidence. And so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and
come see Khammi.
that's the idea is that you just have more clarity on what's moving into ease in your life and what that looks like. Because it's really hard to figure that out. It's really hard to figure out what is easier and is it okay to follow what feels easier? Because we're taught a lot of times that no, it should be really hard to be a human in the world, right? Like everything should be hard. And human design sort of is suggesting, well, maybe not. Maybe the things that come easy to you are what you move into a little bit. So,
What advice do you have for all the Huntresses out there?
ooh. Okay. Okay. Um, I well, I would just say trust your body. I think that's ultimately like the crux of all of my work is like moving into trusting your body. Yeah.
Okay. Love that. And then the last question is, what does the word rich mean to you?
Ooh, honestly, I think it's probably the the moments when I'm able to settle into my body. It's when I'm able to settle into the moment I'm in and have little gaps in my mind of things that I need to do. And I actually just exist for a moment. So I think, and which is a very generator answer for you.
When you're present.
Yeah, I think presence. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, that's hard to
It's
be.
it's very hard. Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot for me, but those are probably like the when I feel the most fulfilled is when I get those little gifts of presence.
I
Yeah.
love that. The present of presence.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Khammi. I
Oh my
really
god.
enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my god, thank you so much for having me. This
And
was
this was so
amazing.
fun. I'm glad I got the surprise version of this.
Because she would have researched it. Would you say bye to all the Huntresses out there? Using your best Stranger Things voice.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening. This is Rockin' Khammi signing off.
You've been listening to Talk Rich to Me, a production from Huntress Wealth. For more chill takes on finance, sign up for our newsletter at huntresswealth.com. That's HUNTRESSWEALTH.com.